الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. What's the battery? Carry them on me. Just waiting for the batteries. Are you able to hear me in the back? Okay. Maybe you can start. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala, thumma amma ba'd. Proceed. Inshallah, today we have Bab al-Tafweed and Bab al-Imama, the rest of Bab al-Imama, for the chapter on Imama, leading the Salah. In Bab al-Tafweed, or the chapter or the station of Tafweed, which is delegation, Imam al-Harawi rahimahullah ta'ala started in his book Manazil As-Saa'ireen, started this chapter by saying, قال الله عز وجل حاكيا عن مؤمن آل فرعون وأفوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, quoting the believer of the family of Fir'aun, وَأُفَوِّضُ أَمْرِي إِلَى اللَّهِ, and I delegate my affair to Allah. إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَصِيرٌ بِالْعِبَادِ, indeed Allah is seeing of His servants. I did not find any translator who actually used delegate in this ayah. They did not use delegate, they used entrust and other words. But we will, we have the concept of taslim, which is surrender, the concept of thiqa, which is trust, the concept of reliance, which is tawakkul. So we want to have a word for the concept of tafweed. And there is no better word than delegation, even though delegation is usually used when someone delegates a matter or an affair to an assistant, a subordinate, or an equal. We can use delegation here with emphasis that this is a different type of delegation. You're delegating your affair to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to your Lord, the all-hearing, the all-seer, the omnipotent, the omniscient. So this is a different type of delegation. A delegation of this nature would warrant your complete sort of surrender and your complete comfort after you delegate a matter to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and your complete dismissal of your hawl and quwwah, your influence and power, and acknowledgement of His influence and power. So this is a different type of delegation. You're delegating to your Lord your affairs. Then Imam al-Harawi rahimahullah ta'ala said, And this is where Imam al-Harawi, Imam Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah would disagree with his master, Imam al-Harawi, because they're disagreeing over the relationship between tawakkul and tafweed. The value of the two stations, which station is greater than the other, and the relationship between them. We did talk about this last time. We did say that Imam Ibn Qayyim considers tafweed to be an integral part of tawakkul. Whereas Imam al-Harawi sees tawakkul without the tafweed. So he sees the tawakkul without the tafweed. He sees tafweed to be a different concept, that tawakkul is short of it, that tafweed is beyond tawakkul, transcends tawakkul. And this is a difference in form, not in meaning. It's a difference in semantics, not a difference in substance, because at the end of the day, they are saying that both concepts are virtuous concepts that we have to uphold. But Imam Ibn Qayyim puts tafweed under tawakkul, and Imam al-Harawi separates them. So Imam al-Harawi then will start his comparison between tawakkul and tafweed, reliance and delegation. He says about tafweed, وهو ألطف إشارة وأوسع معنى من التوكل. It is finer in inferences and more comprehensive in meaning than tawakkul, reliance. He will then explain why. He says, فإن التوكل بعد وقوع السبب والتفويض قبل وقوعه وبعده. Because tawakkul takes place after the occurrence of its warranting cause. Maybe this is how we should translate it. It's a better translation. Because tawakkul takes place after the occurrence of its warranting, triggering, provoking cause. وَالتَّفْوِيض قَبْلَ وُقُوعِهِ وَبَعْدَهُ. And tafweed, which is delegation, takes place before and after. Then he goes on to say, وَهُوَ عَيْنُ الْإِسْتِسْلَامِ. So tafweed is عَيْنُ الْإِسْتِسْلَامِ. Tafweed is at the heart of surrender, submission, surrender. وَالتَّوَكُّلُ شُعْبَةٌ مِّنْهُ. Whereas tawakkul is a branch of it, not the heart of it, but a branch of it. And then he will start the classification. What is Imam al-Harawi trying to say here? Imam al-Harawi is trying to say that tawakkul happens after the occurrence of, it's provoked. It is not a state that is ongoing. It is provoked. Something happens to you, something threatens you, you are embarking on a journey, you're embarking on a venture, anything. Something warrants you to rely on Allah, as if you are now embarking on something or fearing from something, and you say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, protect me, help me, this or that. Now you are relying on the assistance of Allah when you have been provoked to do so. But he envisions tafweed to be different. Tafweed is when you're always delegating your affairs, your entire life, your entire course of life, your entire journey in this life, you're delegating it all to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you want Allah to plan for you, you are cognizant and certain of your inability to discern between, good and evil, between, khayr and shar, for you, between that which is a benefit for you and that which is harmful. How often do we do this? How often? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ وَعَسَىٰ أَن تُحِبُّوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ شَرٌّ لَكُمْ. Perhaps you may like something and it is bad for you, or harmful for you, and you may like something, or you may dislike something. You may dislike something and it's good for you, and you may like something and it is bad for you. So the person, the mufawwid, is someone who is basically counting on Allah's choices for him, on Allah's planning for him, and just leaves himself to the plans of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like the leaf of a tree in the course of the wind. That's the mufawwid, the true mufawwid. And we will come back and say that this does not mean that they will not be planning and that they will not be taking precautions. But you get the difference. Imam al-Harawi wants to point out between tawakkul and tafweed. So he says that this is, tawakkul happens after wuqu' sabab, tafweed happens before and after. He says that it may also mean that, the mutawakkil engages the causes and then relies on the assistance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the mufawwid, delegates the whole affair to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prior to engaging the causes. In all honesty, I agree with Imam Ibn al-Qayyim's defense of the station of tawakkul. I think that tafweed is part of tawakkul. And the reason why I agree with Imam Ibn al-Qayyim's defense of the station of tawakkul is that tawakkul has been mentioned so many times in the Quran. It's a command to the Prophet. It's a description of the Prophet. The Prophet ﷺ, who is the best of the mutawakkilin, and the best of the mufawwidin, and the best of al-wathiqin billah, and the best of al-musallimin lillah wal-mustaslimin lahu. The Prophet ﷺ himself was described, even in the previous books, as al-mutawakkil. وَسَمَّيْتُكَ الْمُتَوَكِّلِ أَنْتَ عَبْدِي وَرَسُولِي سَمَّيْتُكَ الْمُتَوَكِّلِ. This was reported by Bukhari from Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, that he was described in the previous books. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "You are my slave and messenger, I give you the name of al-mutawakkil." And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ إِنَّكَ عَلَى الْحَقِّ الْمُبِينِ. And then so many times tawakkul is, rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are on the plain truth, or the manifest truth. And so many times in the Quran, tawakkul is mentioned, and Ibn al-Qayyim argues that tafweed has been only mentioned while quoting the believer of al-Harawi. So Ibn al-Qayyim says that tafweed is part of tawakkul. Yet, when Imam al-Harawi separates between them, Imam al-Harawi may be, it is important also to not disregard or to dismiss Imam al-Harawi's separation between tawakkul and tafweed. Because maybe when tawakkul comes across our minds, when tawakkul, not the tawakkul of the Prophet ﷺ, not the tawakkul that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about in the Quran when He commanded the Prophet ﷺ to make tawakkul, but maybe when the concept of tawakkul, because keep in mind that the word itself, tawakkul, which is to basically rely on someone, or to give power of attorney to someone, to make someone your wakil, your agent, your attorney, that concept itself, or the wording itself, may impact our perception of the concept. So we may be thinking of tawakkul like someone who, makes a plan, and then engages the causes, takes, steps, and then he says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now I want this, I want your assistance to procure it, or to attain it, or to earn it. I want your assistance. Whereas Imam al-Harawi says that al-mufawwid is not even certain of what he wants, but he does make plans and so on, but he's saying to Allah, whatever you decide for me, I am pleased with. Whatever you decide for me that which is good for me, and make me pleased with it. As we say in Dua al-Istikhara. Isn't that what we say in Dua al-Istikhara? اللهم إن كان في هذا الأمر خير لي في دين ومعاش عقبة أمري عاجله وآجله فاقدره لي ويسره لي فاقدره لي ويسره لي وبارك لي فيه ثم ردني به. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala فاقدره لي ويسره لي وإن كان في هذا الأمر شر لي في دين معاشي عقد أمر عاجلا أجير فاصرفه عني واصرفني عنه ثم ردني به. وقت ذي خير حيث كان ثم ردني به. اللهم إني أستغفرك بأنك واستقدرك بقدرتك وأسألك من فضلك العظيم فإنك تقدر ولا أقدر وتعلم ولا أعلم وأنت علام الغيوب. اللهم إن كان في هذا الأمر ويسر لي خير لي في دين ومعاش عاقبة أمره فاقدره لي ويسره لي ثم بارك لي فيه. وإن كان في هذا الأمر شر لي في دين ومعاش عاقبة أمره فاصرفه عني واصرفني عنه واقدر لي خير حيث كان ثم ردني به. So that last part, وَقْدُرْ لِيَ الْخَيْرَ حَيْثُ كَانَ, and then decree for me khayr, which is good wherever, wherever it is, or whatever you deem to be good for me, ثُمَّ رَضِّنِي بِهِ, and then make me pleased or content, make me content with that which you chose for me. So that is the attitude of a mufawwid. اقدر لي الخير حيث كان, decree for me that which is good, and then make me content with that which you have decreed. So it is important that when we have tawakkul, we include tafweed in our tawakkul, because it is very vital that you're not counting on the assistance of Allah after you made up your mind. You're counting on the assistance of Allah before and after. And you're counting on Allah's planning for you even before you embark on anything, or before you feel any threat, or you aspire for anything. It is just an attitude in your life that you are counting on His plans for you, which we will come back to say does not mean that you will not be planning for yourself. But since we're at it, so we say that and this is an important concept, the concept of you're planning, like the Prophet. Who's the best mutawakkil? The Prophet ﷺ. Who's the best mufawwid? The Prophet ﷺ. Who's the best wathiq billah? The Prophet ﷺ. Who's the best mustaslim lillah? The Prophet ﷺ. Did he plan for his hijrah? Did he plan for his battles? Did he plan in Badr and Uhud and Khandaq? Did he make all the provisions, necessary provisions? He did. Therefore, all of this planning and engaging the causes is not counter to tafweed, because the Prophet ﷺ is the best mufawwid. So what does tafweed in this case mean? If you're planning and you're making careful, precise plans, and engaging the causes like anyone else, any human being. You're engaging the causes, you're following the same rules, universal laws that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instilled in this universe like everyone else. So tafweed in this case is your recognition. It is the amal al-qalb, it is the work of the heart, it is your complete recognition that whatever my plans are, they may not be the best plans. This is just the best to me, the best plans to me. This is just as much as I can tell now. This is as much as I can tell now. Therefore, I will act upon my convictions, my findings, my conclusions at this point. You have to be completely aware that they may not be the perfect plans. That وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ وَعَسَىٰ أَن تُحِبُّوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ شَرٌّ لَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Allah knows and you do not. And then you have to be completely certain of your lack of hawl and quwwah, of your complete lack of hawl and quwwah, and disavow and dismiss and disavow and disown your hawl and quwwah, your influence and power. You are certain that whatever you do, وَاللَّهُ خَلَقَكُمْ وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ, and Allah created you and that which you do. That energy is created. The movement of my hands is created. I would have never been able to create the energy that made me able to move my hands up or down. Allah created us and created our actions. In this case, when you have all of this, and then also the mufawwid keeps in mind the insignificance of this life compared to the hereafter, and the insignificance of the events of this life compared to the hereafter, and he is working for the greater prize and the bigger prize, which is in the hereafter, and he knows that afflictions and tila and tests and trials in this dunya, if they will get him to the right place, they are worth it and they are welcome. If they will get him to the right place, if I will pass the test of poverty, then that is certainly much more welcome than the test of wealth or prosperity that I will fail. Right? Absolutely. Everyone should be certain of this. And Mufawwid has all of this in mind. Therefore, Mufawwid will have no anxiety, no anxiety, no agitation, no haste, and no Machiavellianism in his actions. Although Machiavelli himself may have not been that Machiavellian, but whatever people think of him, and no grief, and no debilitating grief. Maybe we should qualify. Some anxiety is healthy. That anxiety that will actually make you study for the test is healthy. It's the incapacitating anxiety that the believer should not have. Some grief is healthy. The Prophet ﷺ mourned the death of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So some grief is healthy, but it is the debilitating grief that is, that is not befitting of a Muslim. So incapacitating anxiety, no. Improper haste, no. Machiavellianism, no. In the sense that people think of it, but in Islam we do have, so if Machiavelli said ends justify the means, in Islam we have a different version of it. And Machiavelli said this because he did not see any compatibility between the Christian concept of goodness and effective governance. But Machiavelli did not see Umar ibn Khattab. Had he seen Umar ibn Khattab, he would have been able to see someone who was capable of basically combining the two concepts, niceness and effectiveness, seamlessly, simultaneously and seamlessly. Effectiveness, sometimes it requires assertiveness, sometimes it requires force, to some extent. So, but anyway, Muslims should not have this incapacitating anxiety. Muslims should not have haste. Also, when you want to build a masjid, you feel like you are, sometimes we don't have tafweed, and we feel we are it. And we are in charge of this deen. We are the protectors of this deen. The concept itself is not particularly a bad concept, but it has to be qualified. It has to be fine-tuned. It has to be adjusted. I grew up at a time where the Islamic awakening was at its peak, when I was a child. And we were sitting in the masjid, and that's in Alexandria, Egypt. We were being taught that each and every one of us should be like Abu Bakr, when he said, "Ayamqusu wa ana hayy." Ayamqusu, which means Ayamqusu ad-din wa ana hayy. Should the deen diminish while I'm alive? When he was talking to Umar ibn Khattab about fighting the murtadeen, fighting the apostates. And he said to him, "Inna al-wahya qad inqata." The revelation has ceased. After the Prophet ﷺ departed, the revelation ceased. Ayamqusu wa ana hayy. Should I let it diminish? Should I let it fade out while I'm alive? Should I see the deen being... The concept is a beautiful concept. However, if you think that you are Abu Bakr was the governor, the Khalifa of the Muslim state. Abu Bakr had, the Sahaba around him, the best of generations around him. If you think that the concept from your corner, your little corner, yes, do as much as you can. Reach your full potential, your full potential, from your little corner. But to think that you're really Abu Bakr, that is a psychiatric disorder. That is not righteousness. That is delusion. And whoever thinks that he is really going to be like Abu Bakr will be delusional. And then this delusion will be extremely consequential. Extremely consequential. You take matters into your own hands and you start to act like you basically act on behalf of the Ummah without any delegation from the Ummah, without any basically power of attorney from the Ummah. So the person that has tafweed is a person that will not make haste, a person that will not be delusional, a person that would work from his corner, from his point in place and time, within his capacity, no haste, and no cheating, and no ends justify the means, although al-Wasa'il Ahkam al-Maqasid, which means that the rulings of the means will depend on the rulings of the ends, will follow the rulings of the ends. But that's a different concept from ends that justify the means. It's still qualified. It does not mean that all, it does not mean that all good ends will justify any good or bad means, or any bad means. So there will be no haste, there will be no anxiety, there will be no ends justifying the means, there will be no grief or anger afterwards. That's the debilitating grief and anger. So it is before, during, and after. The mufawwid will have no anxiety before, no incapacitating anxiety before he embarks on the action, will have no haste, he will wait. If it is not time for us to build the masjid, we will wait until it is time to build the masjid. And meanwhile, or if it is not time for us to start like an organization, or to start like an Islamic school, or to start an Islamic college, we will wait until we have the proper resources to start things properly. No haste. And then during the action also, there will be no ends justifying the means. And after the action, there will be no debilitating grief and no anger. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala closes a door for you, then you will follow the other door. You'll just, whatever other doors have been opened, then you will follow those doors. That concept itself of, your heart being completely certain and completely certain of Allah's hawla and quwwah and completely comfortable with this, and to delegate and to rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while doing your best is a concept that we will have, that will be easy for us and seamless for us if we understand the true nature of the aqdar. It is about determinism and choice and free will. It is, at the end of the day, about understanding that they are compatible. There is actually, this is actually a philosophical argument, whether determinism and free will are compatible or not. This is not just about Islam. This is an argument among philosophers. Are these two concepts compatible? And according to Ahl Sunnah, determinism and free will are compatible. Aqdar, qadar, predestination, is compatible with free will. And the litmus paper test that I always use is here. Okay, so inshallah, if God wills, I will bring this bowl of water from the floor and put it on the table now, inshallah. This is enough free will to make me morally responsible, isn't it? It is. I made that, I made that decision. I made that choice. This is enough free will to make me morally responsible. The fact that this action itself was created by Allah and Allah is in complete control of it And had he not willed for this to take place, I would have been distracted, the roof would have collapsed, my hand would have been paralyzed. There could have been tons of possibilities, many possibilities. So, but this is enough free will to make me morally responsible, and to make me responsible in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and accountable for my deeds, good and bad. Inshallah, I will take this bottle and put it back on the floor.
Wait, Sheikh.
He wants to distract me. I could have been distracted. I was distracted for a second. So it worked. Because I was distracted, because I meant to take it immediately. But it didn't happen. I waited for maybe 2-3 seconds and looked at him, and then actually that's a good demo. But reconciling the two concepts reconciling two concepts in your mind may not be completely sort of easy. You may not be able to comprehend that reconciliation completely as a human being. But you just need to understand that, yes, keep in mind that determinism is not only an Islamic concept, predestination not only Islamic, this is a philosophical concept. The most determinist of all people must be the atheists, right? You would think that they are not, but they must be the most determinist of all people. Because if this is just about matter, if this universe is just matter, then then there is not divine determinism, but there is cosmic determinism. Because if the universe came about from the Big Bang, then it is predetermined, mathematically predetermined, because it's just matter. The concept of free choice and free will is basically superstition, should be superstition to an atheist. Because it is just matter, and it was created at one point, and everything is predetermined from that moment of the Big Bang. Everything is cosmically predetermined. So atheists are the most determinist people. So the concept of determinism or the concept of predestination is not just an Islamic concept. People realize that we are not just, or most people, because there are those people who believe in free will, but most people realize that it is not just free will. Whether they are the compatibilists who want to reconcile between, which some of them are called soft determinists, and or soft on the choice, the side of the choice. But generally speaking, they're called soft determinists. Or they are the non-compatibilists, who say that they cannot be combined. Free will and determinism cannot be combined. Some of them will choose the side of determinism, some of them will choose the side of free will. The compatibilists will try to combine between them. So, as Muslims, we should be comfortable with that reconciliation. We should be compatibilists. We should bring together the two concepts. Yes, Allah is the creator. Yes, the energy that I'm using now to move my hand is created by Allah, or that I move to bring this up and put it on the table is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But yet, I can make a decision, act on it, and that is enough to make me morally responsible and responsible in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so then tafweed is the recognition of the heart. It is amal al-qalb, it is the action of the heart. Ma'rifah, it is the recognition of the heart, and it is amal al-qalb, it is the action of the heart. It is a ma'rifah of what we mentioned that will lead to this no incapacitating anxiety, no haste, no impropriety, no cheating, and no debilitating grief or anger afterwards. Then Imam al-Harawi rahimahullah ta'ala said, وَهُوَ عَلَى ثَلَاثِ دَرَجَاتٍ. And it is 3 levels. التفويض is 3 levels. الأولى أن يعلم أن العبد لا يملك قبل عمله استطاعة فلا يأمن من مكر. The first is to know that before any action the slave owns no power. The first is to know that before any action the slave owns no power or influence. فلا يأمن من مكر. So they should not feel safe from Allah's plots. No matter how strong they are and how intelligent they are, they know that their plots are all known to Allah. وَيَمْكُرُونَ وَيَمْكُرُ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. And they plot and Allah plots and Allah is the best of plotters, because إِنَّ رُسُلَنَا يَكْتُبُونَ مَا يَمْكُرُونَ. Our messengers are writing, that they are plotting. Our plots are known to us, our plots are not known to them, so that's why we're the best of plotters. And then وَلَا يَيْأَسُ مِنْ مَعُونَ. So when he knows that he has no power of influence, then he will never feel safe, no matter how intelligent and strong he is, from the plots of Allah. وَلَا يَيْأَسُ مِنْ مَعُونَ, or despair of his help. No matter how weak that person is, he would never despair of Allah's help, because he knows that Allah is in control of all things. And how many stories can we tell about someone who's afraid from his supervisor, and then, before he knew it, his supervisor was fired. That very frightening figure at the top of the company or wherever was fired before he was able to cause you any harm. وَلَا يُعَوِّلُ عَلَى نِيَّةٍ. Or count, so you know that all power belongs to Allah, so you do not count on, or count on their own intention. You do not count on your own intention. You do not count on your own azima, your own resolve. Because Allah could change your niyyah and Allah could exhaust your resolve. So you intend to do something even good. You're counting on your good intention. I want to do this thing which is good. But you don't know if it's really good. And you don't know if you will be able to keep your intention straight. And I want to do it for Allah. So I have a moment now that I know that this is a good thing for my community, and I really want to do it on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't count on your niyyah. Don't trust your niyyah. Because even now, when you're sitting in your bedroom and making that resolve, your niyyah may be corrupted. Or it may get corrupted at one point. Your resolve may become exhausted by Allah at one point. So count on His help and assistance. Don't count on your good intention or your good resolve. Then he said, الدرجة الثانية معاينة الاضطرار. The second is to behold the inevitability of fate. اضطرار is the inevitability of fate. It's fate. Determinism. فَلَا يَرَى عَمَلًا مُنْجِيًا. So they will not see salvation in any action, because they know that their salvation is by the grace of Allah only. لا يدخل أحدكم الجنة بعمله. قال ولا أنت يا رسول الله. قال ولا أنا إلا أن يتغمدني الله برحمته. None of you will enter the Jannah by his actions. Even you, O Messenger of Allah, even I, except if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows His mercy on me. Then, وَلَا ذَنْبًا مُهْلِكًا, or destruction in any sin. He does not see destruction in any sin. Why? Because the penitent will always have the doors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open to him. So he will not see his destruction in any sin, or he will not see the destruction of anyone in any sin, because the doors are going to be continuously open for the penitent. وَلَا سَبَبًا حَامِلًا, he will not see any effect in any cause. Any effect in any cause. Keep in mind that we believe that causes lead to their effects by the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and by the will and permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here is the contingency that we as believers add. We know that causes lead to their effects. We act like this, like everyone else. وَقَدَّرَ فِيهَا أَقْوَاتًا فِي أَرْبَعَةِ أَيَامٍ مِنْ السَّائِلِينَ أَنْتُمْ أَعْلَمُ بِأُمُورِ دُنْيَاكُمْ. Allah said, and He put the provisions into it. in 4 days, equally accessible to the seekers. It will treat this planet, will treat everybody the same way. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Antum a'lamu bi umuri dunyakum." You know the affairs of your dunya better, because the affairs of your dunya are based on the universal laws of Allah that do not change, that you should basically discover yourselves and figure out yourselves. But so we do believe this. So we do believe that the fire burns, and that is why you should be careful around fire, and that's why you should warn your kids not to come close to fire, and that's why you should fear from the fire in the hereafter. But we believe that fire burns with the permission of Allah, and if He did not permit it to burn, it will not burn Ibrahim, and the knife will not cut Ismail, and so on and so forth. So that's the concept of He does not see any cause to be affected by itself, inherently affected. It is affected by the making of Allah, not inherently affected. Al-Darajat As-Saalikeen, the third is about third degree is about شهود انفراد الحق بملك الحركة والسكون والقبض والبسط. It is beholding the singularity of the true one, al-Haq, the true one, concerning his complete control of motion and stillness and giving and withholding. And that, like we said in the beginning, will help you make tafweed, basically be certain and assured that Allah is in control, complete control of motion and stillness. And naqa'id, the opposites. وَالْقَبْضِ وَالْبَسْطِ, giving and withholding. Then وَمَعْرِفَتِهِ بِتَصْرِيفِ التَّفْرِقَةِ وَالْجَمْعِ, also knowing the proper administration. معرفته, your own knowledge, your own understanding, your own recognition. بِتَصْرِيفِ التَّفْرِقَةِ وَالْجَمْعِ, you know the proper administration of their affairs in the states of tafriqa, multiplicity of their conditions, and jama', union with the one, and togetherness with the one. We did talk about this several times before. It's one of the very important concepts in Sufism, that to understand what is meant by tafriqa wal jama', and to understand the Sharia compliant version of that, the Sharia compliant concept of tafriqa and jama', and how you could combine between them, and how you should be cognizant of both tafriqa and jama'. Tafriqa is dispersion. Tafarruq is certainly dispersion, but tafriqa is variance, difference, multiplicity, and this refers to the multiplicity of your conditions. Multiplicity, you have different circumstances at different times. Allah has different demands of you during those different times, right? When it is time to host to basically entertain your guest, or to host your guest, that's time to host your guest. When it's time to come to the Jama'ah or Jum'ah, it's time to come to the Jum'ah. When it is time to be in dhikr, or enjoying the uns, or intimacy of dhikr, then it is time to be in dhikr. When it is time to be in jihad, it's time to be in jihad. When it's time to be in this, it's time to be in. There is a time for everything. There is a time for everything. This is basically tafriqa. This is basically the multiplicity of your conditions, and the good and the bad, and the hardship and the ease, and you're being tested by hardship to demonstrate what? Patience, and you're being tested by ease and wealth, and to demonstrate what? Shukr, and so on. This is all tafriqa. But al-jama' is the union, is basically your recognition that all of this comes from the true one, from al-Haq subhanahu wa ta'ala. The originator of all of this is one. All of your different conditions and circumstances are coming from the one. So ease and hardship will be almost the same. Yes, you are a human being, and certainly, you prefer ease over hardship. And the Prophet used to ask us, prescribe for us to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for al-afiyah, safety, but recognizing that all of these are tests coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's a moment of jama', that is the moment of union with the one, originator of all of this. That is the moment of Ahmad ibn Hanbal when he said, You were seeing the hand of the guard, I was seeing the hand of Allah. I was being flooded by the decree of Allah, by the hand of the guard, but ultimately by the decree of Allah. He decreed it. So that's why I was smiling. I was content with His decree. When you were weeping over my suffering, I was content with His decree. So that's the point of Jannah. And mastering this, and we will repeat it over and over again, because mastering this is very important for us, so that we're not indifferent, so that we're not fatalists, so that we are not basically favoring, our wants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over His wants of us. And knowing how to act and how to administer our lives, our time in the tafriqa and jama, recognizing the multiplicity of the creations and created phenomena and the oneness of the Creator and the originator of all decrees. That's it with the station of the Tafweed. Imam al-Harawi will continue to basically dissect the station of Tawakkul, and just he will talk about the station of Thiqa, which is trust, part of the station of Tawakkul. But Thiqa, it has different inferences. The word Thiqa has different inferences from the word Tawakkul. Even though Thiqa is part of the station of Tawakkul, it is not inappropriate to single it out, so to highlight that concept of thiqa or trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he will talk about taslim, part of the station of tawakkul. Even when he moves to the next section of the book and he talks about sabr and rida, part of the station of tawakkul. There is no tawakkul without sabr and rida. There is no tawakkul without rida, without contentment. So you rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then Allah decrees something for you, and then you show displeasure to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not tawakkul. This is not the tawakkul of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even though you may think it is, but it is not. قولوا قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.